sorry, I had to ask to present earlier. I have access to power issues. So, speaking of access, um, I just want to um, just go to the next slide, please. I'm going to talk mainly as a teacher from the classroom. I'm not going to talk about the broader, national issues. And the first thing I want to say is that for us in the classroom, equity is about people. It's not about and relationships. So the relationships between teachers and students, between communities, between the marginalized and the rich, all those are what I consider equity. So equity for me is not about the infrastructure, especially in e-learning. It's not about the infrastructure so much. It's not about whether people have radios or TVs or internet. It's about what is the relationship between the people who live in the rural areas in terms of their access to everything, food, electricity, business, all those things, and not just what they have access to in terms of the technology itself. And there's so much inequality in Kenya, so that even if you were to avail a balloon to people and say now you have the internet, their relationship to technology is different from people who are in the suburbs of Nairobi who have smartphones and who go to work and use laptops. So we need to think of equity in that broader sense and not just about access to gadgets. The next slide, please. The other thing we need to think about is these three things for me. I'm not a very good expert on this, but this is what I've seen. The first thing I've already said is that we have to think of equity in terms of familiarity with the gadgets. So even if, for example, we were to give everybody a laptop today, the fact remains that some people have had access to laptops and have been used to laptops for a longer time than others. So those people can troubleshoot. For example, they know where to get more resources if the particular program they have is not working, which is not the case for people who are seeing a laptop for the first time. So those are the things we need to think about, not just about whether people have radios and laptops. It's whether how familiar are they with the technology. It's like driving. If a driver of 18 years is different from a driver of 50 years old, and that's why the matatu industry was told you must have drivers of a certain age, because the way we think as we mature determines how we use technology. And so we cannot just assume that giving laptops to everybody is going to solve the problems. The next one is the skills. And here skills, I was thinking of the psychomotor skills. One of the things that really bothers me about the use of like Zoom for children is that we are making a lot of assumptions about the skills of children. When you put something on the screen the way we are doing here, we already have a background knowledge that is unspoken, a background knowledge that if I look at the screen, there are people who are listening and looking at me even if I can't see them. Children don't yet have that kind of skill. They haven't developed that skill to coordinate what they see to something which they cannot see. And these are the things that we are not really thinking about when we are saying that children should be put in front of laptops. One parent was telling me about how when the classroom starts, the teacher has to first make sure everybody has access. So she's shouting, but mute your microphones. What does a 4-year-old know about muting microphones? We take a lot of these small things for granted, and yet for children, it's a big deal. It's not obvious that I need to mute the microphone and unmute it when I want to speak. It's not obvious that when I'm speaking to a screen, I'm speaking to other people. We are taking for granted a lot of adult skills, and we are assuming that children have them. And this is abuse because we are not allowing children to develop their visual and psychomotor skills naturally. We are rushing them and imposing adult skills on them. And this is something that the child development people should have been saying something to the government about. The other thing about equity is the teachers' resources. We've talked so much about homes having access to computers, but we're not talking about access for teachers. And what is happening is that teachers are bearing the cost of having internet, having the materials. We are spending more time looking for materials online because now we can't use the textbooks. And these kinds of costs are not being factored so that the teachers from schools with these resources where they're interacting more with internet have an edge and familiarity over other teachers who are just being bombarded with a balloon and a laptop and told, teach today, like you're a guru at this. Next slide. So why are we not having these conversations? We are not having them because we have fetishized technology. We think that technology solves social problems, which it doesn't. And that's why I put there that to fetishize is to treat with unwarranted respect and to overvalue. We are overvaluing the importance of technology in education. Technology cannot solve all the issues that even Dr. Jekemei was talking about. Next slide. So why are we fetishizing technology? One is the first assumption that learning is linear. We think, and this is what Dr. Jekemei was saying about resilience, we think that if I don't learn X today, I will not be able to learn Y tomorrow. And learning is not like that. Sometimes you can learn Y tomorrow and then go back to X, and then X makes sense. But we have this very linear idea of education that it must follow a certain program. And that is why we are thinking that it's important that we have technology in the home so that we can insist that kids learn this lesson before they go to the next one. We are underestimating the capacity of the human brain to go back. The second thing is that we think learning is covering the syllabus. It's not. And even Dr. Jekemei has said this. Learning is working, it's playing, it's all these other things. And we are assuming that children are not learning because they are not covering the syllabus. And that's why we are so desperate for this technology. The next thing is that we think group learning is necessarily bad. So people are saying that technology is good because now the child can learn on her own because being in a school is a bad thing. Group learning is necessary everywhere. Mass media is about group learning. Going to church is about group learning. Initiation is about group learning. So we should not have such a bad attitude towards kids meeting together to learn. And then we think that learning is determined only by what the child does with the material, with the class, with the curriculum, and it has nothing to do with their social background. It has everything, learning has everything to do with what they ate in the morning. Are their parents supportive? Are their parents educated? In fact, that's a bigger problem for me. We are assuming that parents are educated when we are saying they'll help with the learning. Then the other problem is our assumptions about technology. One of the assumptions we make is that tools are necessarily progress. The fact that we are using internet and laptops does not necessarily mean education has improved. And even the data says that, in fact, a lot of data also says that there's no difference whether you have tech or not. So we are putting too much emphasis on tech. We also think that tech is culturally neutral, and it's not. Technology comes with its own hidden assumptions about how human beings relate and what they do. And so when we are accepting technology, we are accepting some of these assumptions, and they might not necessarily be assumptions. that are grounded in African realities. And this is something we need to think about. The other assumption we make is that education can be simplified, that we don't need to think about many complex issues together, like nutrition, economics, education of the parents, availability of resources. We have to, child development, all these other things, we need to think about them if we are to grasp what is important for education. Next slide. So for me, I think that teachers are not being listened to. We are just being talked at and told, here is the technology, use it. And when we raise questions, we are told it's because we are resisting change. And that's very disrespectful, can I just say? Because if you value your children, why do you want to disrespect the people taking care of them and teaching them? Next slide. So these are the people who are dominating the debate, in my opinion. First is the techpreneurs, and I wrote a post some years back about how many companies started hanging around Kenya during elections of 2013 for access to the amount of money that they can make from buying tech. I also think that, and the problem with techpreneurs is that they think of education in terms of engineering and business. So they think all education problems can be solved with technology, and education is about business. And that's a problem. That should be a problem for society. The other voices are the politicians and the civil servants and policy consultants. For them, their focus when they're thinking of education is on governance. How does it look in terms of politics, policy, and all those things? The other dominant voice is the media that is more preoccupied with making the public accept these technologies without asking questions. So it's a public relations gimmick, and unfortunately the media are misleading Kenyans. For example, they've started equating digital learning, online learning, and homeschooling, and they are not the same. And each of those terms comes with its own different meanings, but the media is not breaking it down for Kenyans. And then the educational managers, who are everyone from the Ministry of Education to the heads of schools. And as you saw in the saga of Brookhouse, most owners of schools are thinking about brand recognition. They are thinking, I need to get tech in my school so that I look like I'm ahead of the other schools and I am more marketable to parents that way. So you can see from all these four approaches, the engineering, governance, public relations, and competition, that the concern is not teachers and kids. They have other concerns about education which have nothing to do with kids in the classroom. So these are the silences. These are the things that are not being talked about when it comes to technology. One is that, and Dr. Jepkemei mentioned this, people need human encouragement and immediate feedback. But now what technology does is that it turns that into a luxury item. It's either you can afford a tutor, or your parents already are educated and they have a degree so they can help with the learning. So that is already an inequality, because we are expecting people from rural areas who might never have gone to school to help kids with the homework, which is not possible. Or at least even if it's possible, they are coming from a disadvantaged position. The next thing is that tech increases exam obsession, actually, because now without any feedback from teachers, what happens is that technology makes teachers have to rely on the data from the computer, because they are not face-to-face with the child. And actually what is driving Kenyans' desire to see technology everywhere is because they are worried about exams. They are thinking, how will my child do KCSE or KCPE? And I think it's a mistake for the ministry to categorically say there will be no adjustment to exams. I mean, we are human beings. Sabbath can change. Sabbath can change for people. It doesn't always have to be people for Sabbath. The third thing is that technology adds incentive to cheat, because once you show kids that it doesn't matter how they develop or what they think, then they start to see this as a gaming system, that you just need to game the system, do what you need to do to pass, play around with the laptop or whatever. So even as we say we don't want cheating, we are actually increasing the incentive to cheat by insisting on technology. And then finally, education technology does not save money, it transfers the cost to the teachers. So the teachers spend more time doing preparation work, they spend money for internet, and that cost is being kept quiet because people are just looking at the machines and not at the people, the kids, the parents, and the teachers who are affected intimately by technology. So I've ended with a quote there, and I encourage you to look for this gentleman who explains about how technology amplifies inequality. And that's why he says technology by itself doesn't bridge the gap, it only jacks it further apart. So thank you very much. I'll have to go because my laptop is now saying that it wants to check out. But if you have any questions, they can be sent to me or you can email me. All right, thank you very much.